Good morning. Welcome to Evanston Live TV. This is Malika Gardner. I have with me a very special guest, Lori Keenan. She is running for mayor of Evanston. Many of you are probably familiar with her work throughout the community. My encounter with Mary has been, I'm sorry, I said Mary. I'm looking at Mary's name. My encounter with Lori has been, wow, this woman is fire. She fights for the underdog. And I think that that's what people know about you, is that you are that person. You fight for just, you fight for what's right, you fight for what's fair. And I think the controversy around you, Lori, is some people don't like that about you. Could you imagine someone not liking someone who wants what's right for everybody in the community?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to that idea that well-behaved women rarely make history, right? So if you're going to unsettle some people along the way, that will happen. But I've always been willing to stand up and speak up for Evanston, either the residents or whatever it is that's going on in town that I see as important to our community. I'm just willing to spend the time to make it right.
Now, Lori, I want you to tell the people all of your work. I think it's important that people know that you have been active in Evanston for a very long time. And
yeah,
so you have a vision because of the work, the boots on the ground. I mean, you've been out there.
right.
Let the people know all of the work that you've been involved in and why you chose those causes to get involved in.
Well, so my husband and I have lived here in 22 years, and we moved into town we moved here from London, and my sister and her husband lived in Wicker Park, and I said, Evanston or Oak Park, just find us a place to land, because we were moving in sight unseen, and that was as far outside of the city as we were willing to go. And once we landed in Evanston, I knew, this is it, this is home for us. So, and really from the time, we've got 3 kids, our youngest just graduated from ETHS last year. And really from the time we got here, I got involved. And I grew up in a family that, I told my mom over Thanksgiving, she was sort of the OG about community activism, because she and my dad also were really involved in the community. So I've been a volunteer really kind of soup to nuts on various school boards and various positions in town. And I have my own PR and marketing firm. So, my background is in business. So I've been using those skills sort of in a pro bono capacity, because what I realized is if you can kind of amplify the voices through the messaging, then you're really able to kind of create this grassroots groundswell. And typically within a community where you see the groundswell, that's where the community's interests lie. And so to me, being able to really affect a change through that voice was really important. And so some of the bigger initiatives that I've been involved in, years ago, it was sort of a perennial topic each year to cut the libraries and the branch libraries in particular. And so I got involved, this is a decade ago, with the effort to keep the branch libraries in town. And through that effort, I had worked with, my kids went to Kingsley, and I had worked with Dina Hester, was the school librarian there, and she's now on the library board. And she told me, we were actually doing a mural for an author that was coming to visit Kingsley, and she told me she had been the 5th Ward librarian for the West Side branch. And when that library closed, she said she felt like someone in her family had died. And so that really spoke to me. And so we started to get involved. A group kind of rose up again, and it was called Branch Love, and then it became Evanston Public Library Friends. And that effort was really we funded the libraries for 6 months. the library board closed the South Branch. We reopened CAMS, which was an all-volunteer library, and we explored a West Side branch. We also got the library's budget out of the city's budget and through the Illinois library law. So this wasn't sort of a topic that came up each year. And then we put the library in the hands of the library board, and so they could manage their own budget, and that's the way it is today. Another, and that again, that went to a citywide vote where we got, you know, the vote for preserving the branch libraries. After that, another initiative that I was really involved in a tragic way, but I felt like it built community. My daughter had gone to school with DJ Coleman, who was really shot and killed in a case of just mistaken identity his freshman year, 2 weeks into his freshman year at the high school. And DJ was an amazing kid. He was like the Justin Wynn Award winner. You know, he was like model citizen and just this incredible kid. And so I really realized if that can happen here to a kid like that, then there's something really wrong. And sadly, I know I am friends with 2 women in town who have lost children to gun violence. And that's a problem, you know, in our community. This isn't like somewhere else that this is happening. So my experience with the DJ Coleman Foundation was formative for me, because it was one of the few places where I sort of hear a lot of lip service about diversity and, you know, equity in Evanston. But the DJ Coleman Foundation was one of the places where I truly felt like we were just moms working together. And it didn't matter, you know, which side of the tracks or who you were or what you were about. We were all really trying to work together and coalesce to create a better system and place for our children. And that was what the DJ Coleman Foundation was. Tiffany Rice, who founded it, which is DJ's mom, she actually folded the organization several years ago because she wanted to take it in a different direction, and she wanted to sort of heal and have some closure about that. So recently, when I decided to run for mayor, I sent an email out to this Google group of women that we had worked closely with, and just said, I'm running for mayor. You know, we haven't talked or been together in a while. I would love your support. And I was, pleasantly surprised that within 12 hours, every single one of those women had gotten back to me and said, absolutely, I'm in, count me in, I'll do whatever you want. So to me, that says that something we were doing was really right in town. And so that I think is a true example of sort of my spirit of community and why I get involved. And then more recently was the Harley Clark initiative, where that referendum, we got 80% of the vote to preserve a local landmark. Now, excuse me, I will and have taken some heat on these 2 issues, the library and Harley Clark, saying, well, that doesn't represent equity. And I disagree, because what we're trying to do in those places and cases is to create opportunity and to provide equity and inclusion, to bring something to a part of the population that may have felt previously disenfranchised. And so I'm willing to take that heat, because I know what the goal and the potential could be, that we could really work together to try to make this something special for our community, and to turn what, you know, right now is considered a liability into an asset for all of us, really. So, and, you know, people say, well, Harley Clark, he was just this rich old white guy, why do we care? But Harley Clark, actually, his son had learning differences, and he realized that through film, and he was a visual learner, which now we know what that is, but at the time, you know, in 1928, nobody knew what that was. So he was implementing the use of film for education. And he spoke before Congress about this, to use film in education. And he piloted a program in Evanston to do this, to show what the outcome was. And he insisted that one of the schools that be piloted in this program was Foster School, which was an all-Black school at the time. So to me, those sorts of people and places and stories are important for everyone to learn. And I would hope that, there were 4 proposals that went in for Harley Clark, and I would really love to see something come of that.
Wow, you have been very active. I mean, it shows that you know what's going on in Evanston, what's been happening, what's been on the hearts and minds of people. Right now, the topic throughout Evanston is the budget.
Right.
Is the budget.
Right.
If you were mayor right now, how would you handle the council even if you were city manager right now, because city manager pretty much holds the power in Evanston.
Right.
What conversations would you have with Erica Storley and different council members in terms of the direction that they're going with this budget?
Well, I've spoken about the budget even this time around. A couple of things really come to mind for me. The really overall budget, I felt, was a little tone deaf to be asking people to raise taxes at a time that, many people have lost jobs or homes, or, they're really in dire straits. And so to increase the budget 1 penny, I felt like it was symbolic. Like, I felt like people should be sharpening pencils and making this work really across the board for our entire community. And so in my mind, we shouldn't be buying new vehicles or considering raises for employees. We should be really tightening our belts like we've asked our community to do. We should be doing that as well. And, I was part of a group that was really studying the budget like line by line by line. And this again comes back to, I feel like the Evanston residents, and I've said this almost till I'm sick of saying it, but I feel like the people I've worked with and volunteered with in town truly could run a small nation. And the people who I saw going through these budgets, and I am not a numbers person per se, but I understand how to read this, and I've managed budgets in my own business. So they are truly experts, and they were able to find, hundreds, if not, millions of dollars that shouldn't be spent, or certainly shouldn't be spent this year. And so I feel like everybody needed to sort of sharpen their pencils before that was brought to the public, and just go through like very judiciously. I likened it to, there was they were buying new vehicles and asking to raise taxes. And in my mind, that's sort of like asking your friends and family to pay your existing bills while you went out and bought a new car. I mean, it makes no sense. And so I think sometimes logic isn't primary before these discussions are had.
We have a pretty interesting council. You have some council up there who are about the people, and then you have, I call them a crew. They're almost like the good old boys to me. They could care less how the community feels about any of the issues. They're just going to vote, and they may make you feel like you have some say in it. Yeah, we're going to hold a meeting and let the people feel like they have, some say in what we're doing, but the decision's already made, and this is what we're going to do. So if you were up there on that dais, how, we need fighters up there. We need fighters up there. To me, Biden and Kamala are fighters. Kamala most definitely, my girl.
Right.
Fighters.
Well, and to quote Kamala, and I think you and I both have sort of a girl crush on Kamala Harris. Am I right? So but what she says, in her, I'm speaking, that's how I feel. I'm speaking. And right now I'm speaking for all of Evanston, because I do feel like somewhere along the line, this city council and this mayor stopped listening to the people, and that's wrong. They've done everything they can. They've minimized, they've, decreased citizen comment time, and so 30 seconds at the mic isn't enough time to address these real issues that actual, Evanstonians are facing in their day-to-day lives. And, over the course of getting signatures to get the petition signed to get on the ballot, I spent hours and hours and hours talking to Evanston residents and asking them, what are your issues? What do you care about? And it was truly across the board what people were concerned with. What I didn't hear was, gee, I wish we had more luxury development. And yet this council has approved 6 luxury developments in the past 4 years. And, the last one last Monday got approved, and it sort of looked like affordable housing, but it's not true affordable housing. They're talking about $1,700 a month studio and 1-bedroom apartments. Well, that doesn't help the average Evanston family that is trying to stay in town. And what happens with these luxury developments is it's pricing people out of town, because then we are raising taxes on the people who live here, and can't afford the rent that they do have. What council hasn't done is work with existing property owners. There's housing stock in Evanston that is affordable, where there are rents and rental apartments that are $1,200 that a family could live in. But again, we're not listening to, say, the Tina Paydens, and her mom was a former alderman, and they're doing and have done, the Payden family has done affordable housing for years organically. And shouldn't we be listening to how that's happening? Or shouldn't we be listening to, Landmarks Illinois or some of these other communities where they're through adaptive reuse, they're creating affordable housing. But this Emerson project, which just got passed, was initially presented as 70% affordable housing. And in the end, it was 70% luxury. So that, all of, like you said, decisions are made before meetings are had. And I've, been on the receiving end of that too often. And I feel like it's a shame that the voices of the Evanston residents aren't being heard, because they're smart. Why do we continually pay hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars over the course of time, to so-called consultants, when we've got this breadth of knowledge right here in town from people that are living and breathing Evanston every day?
Well, with COVID, there was discussion that, it was a mad exodus of Black Evanston having to move, and they had been here for generations. Their families had owned property,
Right,
and the generation now, they're losing that property because the property taxes is, you just can't afford Evanston,
right,
anymore. So they're having to move. And now we've been hit with COVID-19. So you have a lot of people unemployed right now,
right.
or their future is uncertain. They may be entrepreneurs, own a business, and they don't know how they're going to keep the business open for another wave of COVID through the winter.
Right.
Um, so it's probably going to be even more people moving out, and not just Black Evanston, but just a lot of people having to move because they can't afford to be here anymore.
Well, and
Um,
COVID really disproportionately affected Black Evanston. Within the Black community, I think we're 17% Black in Evanston, and COVID death numbers were at 52% for the Black community. So that's a hugely disparate number. Why is that? And what, I didn't hear that except just recently from a woman who I was talking to from the Stage J. Coleman Foundation. She brought that number to my attention. Now, why hadn't I heard that publicly before? We lost Hecky Powell, who's truly like a son of Evanston. And that was that is a shame. But for every Hecky, there are so many other families out there who also lost loved ones to COVID. And I think that the city's response was okay. I think that it was a lot to deal with and continue to deal with. One of my clients, I had to do a lot of messaging around COVID, and it was a very difficult time, and it was sort of unprecedented for anyone, no matter your sort of station or career or whatever it might be. But I do think that these types of things disaffect our Black community more than other parts of our community. So, I was able to, I've always worked from home, so I was able to work from home, and my husband as well. But what about the frontline workers, and what about the person that's working 3 jobs to try to, afford their rent and stay in town? So,
What's
anyway.
Black Evanston I know, would want to know, um, what is your promise to Black Evanston?
So I think my promise to Black Evanston as a mayoral candidate wouldn't be any different than my promise to Black Evanston as a member of the community. I think that we should all be equally considered. I think that we need more efforts towards equity and parity. I think that we need to have authentic conversations. And I feel like there's been this sort of call out culture that oftentimes really squelches authentic communication and conversations. And like I said about this DJ Coleman Foundation, that was one true place. I think Evanston really talks a good game about diversity, but it's sort of it's our strength and our Achilles heel, because unless people really embrace that, we ask our kids to have diversity in their schools, but I think it was Jerome Summers in his book, he said, Evanston's diverse until the 3 o'clock bell. So I guess my promise to Evanston, to the Black community of Evanston, would be the same that it's always been, to be here, to be involved, to listen, to care about the issues that affect, that community and our community as a whole.
Okay, and I'm gonna get one more question in because I do want to open it up. We've got quite a few people on here. I'm sure they have questions, and I definitely want to hear from the community. Um, so in terms of, like you had pointed out, Black Evanston is dying disproportionately or being infected with COVID. Um, and there's a mad exodus. People can't afford to live here anymore. I mean, overall, everyone is being impacted by COVID, unemployment, but Black Evanston definitely hit. Um, if you were mayor today, and though they've laid it out where people can get free meals, and they have food banks, okay, but outside of food, they've got the food covered, okay, the food is covered. But what about those families who have found themselves unemployed right now? They've bust their ass all their life, and now this pandemic has hit, and they're in a situation that they did not see coming. So now the income is looking kind of scary. So
Yeah.
what, as mayor, and you're having a sit down with Erica Storley, the city manager, what would you tell her? We need to do this right now because people are afraid of losing the roof over their head. Clothes, winter is coming. We need to do this right now.
Well, first of all, I would say we need to come back with a budget that isn't going to increase taxes for people. I would be looking for relief really from any sort of a national perspective that can help communities. I'm part of a group, well, I'm founding member for Better Government Association, and I'm part of a group called Strong Towns. And there are all sorts of ideas out there that can help communities like ours get through problems like this. Maybe not on this scale, but for instance, reparations. I think it's amazing that Evanston, carried the mantle on this, but I don't think that there has been a plan in place for what that looks like. And I think we need to really hurry that up, because right now those funds could be used, for families that live here right now and are struggling. But I feel like a lot of times we don't have a plan in place. We ask for ideas and we don't have any sort of a plan in place. So I know there are a lot of social programs that aren't being funded properly. I know that the current mayor just asked for, everyone to dig deep to try to support Evanston Community Foundation. Tomorrow is Giving Tuesday. I would encourage everyone to give locally. There are so many not-for-profit organizations in town that really more than ever need support. And I would really prioritize those that beneficially affect our community. Whether it's clothing through ESCA, or, you said the food banks are fine, but what sort of housing, what sort of, homeless shelters, whatever those organizations are that can affect real people living here right now, I would look to sort of create those resources.
Okay, and I want to make it a point too, because I just started charging 99-cent access to watch these videos, and you're the first of this because Facebook made it. I became eligible for this, and you support. You said, "Look, I want you to make money," and I appreciated you saying that. I was like, okay, Lori, thank you, thank you. She was like, "I want you to make money. No, please charge. Yes, yes."
Well, and I also felt like it was important. I wanted to pay for, if 100 people want to come, I want them to be able to come, and I don't want barriers for them to be able to come. So I was willing to say, you should make money and they should be able to attend if they want to. But, if this is a barrier for entry, I don't want that to happen. So
I appreciate you spoke to the entrepreneur that's trying to make it in during this COVID. So I appreciated that, because for a minute I was like, is she calling to say you're charging? And you were very supportive. So I
well,
appreciate
and
that.
that's part of, I sort of grew up in a home where you weren't just allowed to criticize. You could challenge something, but you also had to offer a solution, so you can't just whine about it. You need to say, well, okay, but here's how that could look, and here's what we could do to solve it. So
Yes.
that's sort of my vision on life, whether it's sort of micro, with our exchange, or macro, like what's going on in Evanston.
Yes, I appreciate that. So I'm going to open it up for questions from everyone. So if you all want to raise your hand and then unmute yourself once I call on your name, and you can ask Lori a question. Anyone have any questions out there?
Everyone's so quiet.
Okay, here we have Emily. Hi, Emily. Welcome to Evanston Live TV. You have a question.
Hello.
Hello.
I was part of the group that put a referendum on the ballot in 2007 to keep the city at 2100 Ridge. And I'm trying to figure out why they are abandoning that building right now, and sending city services either to the North Branch or to Robert Crown, so that if somebody wants to go to the Civic Center and do several different things, they can no longer do that. And you have to pay for parking. Parking on Central Street is always tight. I'm trying to figure out what the city is up to. Any
The question
ideas?
to me?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So interestingly, we've worked on referendum together. And so I know the work that goes into that. And I know, to preserve that building was important. And I think that a lot of what's going on now is sort of, I don't know, being opportunistic, that we've had to close a public building. And so now, while it's closed, let's not reopen it. Let's sort of behind the scenes be doing this other thing. And I have a feeling that's what's going on right now. I'm not sure why that's happening. Someone said to me, well, it's so we could build a civic center in the 5th Ward. And I said, well, the civic center is in the 5th Ward. What we don't need to be doing is building a brand new, city building. And I think that we've learned that lesson with Robert Crown. $53 million on the backs of the Evanston residents for 2 hockey rinks, I think was really a little bit tone deaf. But it's along the lines of, the most important thing one of our aldermen can talk about right now is beer pong, outdoor beer pong. I mean, to me, it's a matter of not listening to what's important to the residents, and just sort of going along with whatever their agenda is. And I have a feeling that's what's happening here too. I can't say I haven't looked into it enough, but if history tells me anything, there's probably a plan already in play, and getting that building closed is part of that. There was a few, maybe a year or so more now, Judy Fisk, who's the first ward alderman, raised an issue about a diagonal street at the north end of town, where if we could just eliminate that, it would create the grid pattern that's so important. And it came from a letter that she'd gotten from someone who lived in Australia. Now, if some of that is leaving you scratching your head about why we're even having that conversation, then it's probably something else is afoot. And I think more often than not, again, back to this, decisions are made before meetings are had. I truly think something is in motion on the Civic Center. And they've, around COVID, where you can't get throngs of people to come out and say, why are you doing this? I think that there's something behind the scenes that is happening. And I hate to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but experience tells me something.
I'm wondering if they're essentially putting it up for sale without.
Yeah, well, it was listed on a list of, city assets that I think it was CBRE maybe, created this sort of, here's the list of city assets that you could sell off. And my garage is actually full of yard signs over the years that I have collected: Save Chandler, Save Noise, Save, Harley, Save the libraries. I mean, it's ridiculous the numbers of things we've had to save in town. And I think part of that comes from not thinking creatively about our assets. What could we be doing better with that building that would make it better than just a pile of rubble that we could build a new housing development on because it happens to be transit-oriented development? So those are the sorts of things that I hope that we can sort of reassess and think more creatively about.
Okay, and Mary Rosinski has.
Hey, Lori, I have a question. 2 things. One is also in the proposed Fifth Ward TIF that includes the Civic Center. And that is something that I think we all need to be aware of, as far as, how TIFs are used in this town. Are they good? Do you have an opinion on TIFs?
Well, I've been part of a group that's been looking into TIFs because I didn't understand them. I really didn't know how they worked or what they were about. And just from sort of a surface understanding now, what I've seen is that TIFs really segregate a community. And while they're meant to put money into the community, what happens is it takes it out of our school system. It takes it out of other places that it could be used. And, ultimately, it's supposed to bring up property values, which it does. But I think a lot of times those property values probably would have come up on their own. So I don't know enough about it to speak, thoroughly on it. But my general understanding of it, just sort of a quick review, is that TIFs, while they're designed to do one thing, actually have the opposite effect.
I would agree. Can I ask one more question? On the, you brought up a really good point, and that has been the continual erosion of the public voice at public meetings and no answers. What would be your answer to that?
Well, so I have a, first of all, I think that I've been involved with a group recently, and it was these young women who I watched present at council. They were asked to speak at council, and they were given 10 minutes, and it was they were supposed to sort of solve systemic racism in Evanston over the past 100 years, and they were given 10 minutes. And I thought, this is, it doesn't matter, insert your issue here. Often the community's voice is just like tamped down or given a teeny bit of time to solve these important big issues. And I spoke to this one young woman who's a friend of my daughter's, and I said, don't get discouraged. This just, hopefully over time this will change. what I think is important, we have public comment. I would really like to see it be citizen comment. And I would like people to say, I'm so-and-so and I live in the 2nd ward and here's my issue. And then anybody else, if I'm a developer or I'm, a restaurateur from another community that wants to do something, then you could also have a time, but it's not going to be during citizen comment. You're going to have to identify yourself as someone outside of Evanston. If you're a luxury developer and you want to, put quote unquote affordable housing here, that it's really affordable housing or it's luxury housing masquerading as affordable housing, then I need to know that you don't actually live here and that you work for XYZ Corporation that is standing to make money on this project. So that's one of the things I would really like to make a distinction during public comment, that there's citizen comment and then there's everyone else. And that would prioritize the voices of the Evanston people. And I think that's important.
Thank you for that question, Mary. Alex Elliott from the 3rd Ward has a question.
Hi.
Yeah, hello. This is Kyle Campbell. I'm Alex's husband. I asked that she unmute. So really the question's from me. So my question is about gas-powered leaf blowers.
Yeah.
Cities across the country, including Washington, D.C., have banned gas-powered leaf blowers. Will you listen to the science and prioritize the health of the lawn crews, children, and residents of Evanston by banning gas-powered leaf blowers? They're
Well,
direct
Alex, you're
Hi.
speaking directly to my heart.
Yay.
So gas-powered leaf blowers, this is sort of a quality of life issue. And I feel frivolous when I'm talking about parking tickets or gas-powered leaf blowers, but it is truly, these are some of the things that disaffect the people who live here. Not just from a health standpoint, but noise pollution and everything else, our environment. So, I have this harebrained scheme, but I would actually, because I work from home, I would offer to anyone who lived in any neighborhood to deputize them to write tickets. I would ban gas-powered leaf blowers, and I would say, that they would be deputized to be able to write tickets, not to the homeowner, because I don't want to, put an undue burden on the homeowner, but to the landscaping company that is using them. And to say, because, people come through and they've got like 10 mowers and blowers and edgers and everything else, and they're all, gas powered. And there are communities way less progressive than Evanston that are already doing this. So, we have this sort of fake law in place, but I can't tell you the numbers of times I practically made lawn crews cry by going out and saying, you can't use this. It's between May and October or whatever the dates are. You shouldn't be using this tool right now. So yeah, it's a priority for me too.
Great. I think that's amazing. Yeah, the last day to use them is this Thursday. So on Friday, the seasonal ban goes back into effect. But great. I'm so glad to hear that.
I wish I could give you the badge right now.
I'd use it.
Yeah.
And we've actually found that when we talk to landscaping crews, homeowners kind of expect the leaf blowers, but when we've talked to neighbors and landscaping crews, they're happy not to use them.
Right.
And it has not affected the price that we pay for our landscapers. So we feel confident that we're not hurting their business, which we care about. And we just want to, protect their health, protect our environment, et cetera.
I mean,
So,
the numbers of species that are even like hurt by blowing, they've got larvae or whatever that were like decimating these total populations of, pollinators and every, really species that we need more than ever right now. The science all says it. So I think it shouldn't be, to me, it should be a no-brainer.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you. Thanks for the question.
And I think we have time for one more question here. Actually, Kiera Kelly typed her question in the chat. She says, do you think it is important for a mayor to understand Evanston Pacific issues? For instance, is it important to understand Evanston's unique strengths and challenges as a mayor?
Well, yes. And I feel like I am the candidate to do that. I am steeped in the issues. I've spoken on many of them. Evanston is so kind of special and unique. And I don't think that these sort of progressive broad stroke solutions for a community as really kind of complicated as ours can work. And I think that it would be a steep learning curve for someone who hasn't been involved, you know, very grassroots on a number of issues for decades, to come in and just assume, you know, oh, I can have conversations and listen to people and hear what the problems are. I think it's going to take someone who really knows and has really established that credibility within the community. So that's my answer. And those are the things that I view as important. You know, it's daunting for me to go, you know, this is my first run for public office, and, you know, I'm running against a guy that just ran for governor. But I do think, you know, if we could play Evanston Jeopardy, I'd win, because I really do know this community and the people who live here. I think that's really important.
Okay, Lori, this has been awesome. I think people got to know you a little more. I truly believe the people that know your heart and how true you are to Evanston and the people. And then people who don't know you, I think you've been painted, you know, as this just this angry woman running about town, just fighting. And really it's because you just care so much.
Well, and it's funny because I think the angry thing, there's this female lead, it's called, and it says when women are described as bossy or aggressive or angry, what they're really doing is leading. And people are sometimes uncomfortable when women do that. There's actually, I'm originally a Fontana, and so I'm passionate. You know, my dad was Dominic Biagio Fontana, and so I have passion for the things that I care about. And there's a quote, I'd like to share it. This was the morning after the election when we all woke up thinking maybe Trump had actually won the election. And I thought, oh, this is like, what do you do with this? What's that going to look like for Evanston? And I got an email from this group, Strong Towns. And it basically says what happens on a national level all has a local analog. And we need to move forward together. It says, not only does it need your attention, your passion and your energy is game changing. The time and effort you put into making your place stronger and more prosperous will make a huge difference in the lives of others. The results of those efforts won't be ambiguous. Show your place love and it will love you back, I promise. That's what I'm about for Evanston. And I hope people will join me in that cause.
Remember to unmute my own self. I love that. Absolutely love that. And as I told you, I think we need fighters up there on our council. We have a new administration taking over, and it would be great to have the same spirit of Biden and Kamala up there, just fighting for what's right. Making sure everybody's all right.
I think we need someone that is willing to show up and stand up to some of what doesn't feel right. And I've been that person and I'll continue to be that person. So it'd be nice to be on the other side of the dais where you can actually affect a change and not feel like, why am I angry all the time? But to bring the community along and say, help us figure this out. That's sort of where I'm coming from.
Well, I think that's a good note to leave everyone on, and showing them what you're about and who you're about. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope that this has given people another look into who Lori Keenan is.
Well, and if they want to learn more, I'd be remiss as a marketer if I didn't say, check out the website. It's Keenan, 4, evanston.org, and you can learn more about it. It's actually a work in progress because I'm the cobbler's kids with holes in my shoes as a marketer. But we're putting issues up, and really we'd like feedback from the community. What are your issues and your topics that are of concern? Because I'd really like to address them. We're also going to be doing listening tours and trying to get out in the community as much as we can in whatever way possible during COVID, but really encourage more communication and dialogue.
Give them how they can contact you one more time.
So it's Keenan, the number 4, evanston.org. And if you email info@keenan4evanston.org, you'll get me, and I will answer your questions directly. I'm happy to have conversations with anyone.
Okay, all right. I will be sure to put that in the chat. So thank you
And
so
you can
much.
get a button too. You
Oh,
can
hey
be
now.
Keen for Keenan.
And get your button as well. Thank
Yes.
you so much, Lori. And I'm sure we're going to have
Thanks,
you back
Malika.
on. We're going to have you back
Appreciate
on.
all that you do for the community too. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, we'll have you back on as the race starts to heat
Yeah,
up, and
yeah.
you know, we will definitely have you back on. So thank
Right.
you. And thank you to everyone who attended today. Thank
Yeah,
you
thanks
to
everybody.
the roundtable for joining us, the press that joined us today. Thank you so much. And thank you for all your questions and supporting Evanston Live TV. And you all stay tuned. We have Darlene Cannon coming up December 4th. She's running for 2nd Ward Alderman. So you all be sure to register, and let's hear from all of these candidates.
Yeah.
Get more of an insight into who they are. So thank you, Lori. Thank you.
Thanks, Malika.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.